Before we begin, please enter meditation. Surrender to your body. Clear your consciousness. As you know, today's subject is the original me, same as in the last retreat online. Just to summarize it and to make this knowledge more known for those who did not attend. The revelation of the original me is very recent, and it happened as a result of our exploration of conscious sleep. Very interesting. Contemplation of which kind of consciousness can actually endure in the sleep state, which, as we know, for most people equivate becoming completely unconscious. I plan to speak of conscious sleep perhaps in the next live stream. But just want to say that sleep state is entirely misunderstood, not understood. As human beings are generally ignorant in the waking state, it is even more so in their perception of the sleep state. Above all, that duality between sleep and waking is an expression of ignorance. The fact that we perceive these two as different states, or diametrically different, or mutually exclusive. You can relate to the idea that we would like to bring some kind of a consciousness awakened in the waking state into the sleep. But what about the other way around? What about bringing sleep into waking state? Is the experience of the waking state that is disconnected from the sleep state, is it a complete experience of the waking state? Or it is just half of the waking state, or half of the complete experience of the waking state? Waking state without sleep state is actually a sleep in a colloquial sense of this word, meaning that someone is asleep to truth or simply ignorant. Waking state without sleep is a dream. Ramana Maharishi said that In sleep, the self shines alone, and waking state is sleep plus ego and awareness. And while that statement, simplistic in some ways, is actually very true. So sleep is self, and waking state is forgetting self. From the ultimate perspective, higher perspective, this is how things are. Sleep is where we return to self. Usually unconsciously, but we can in turn return to it consciously. I would even say that death is self. Not just sleep is self, death is self, because death is a form of sleep where you simply will not wake up anymore, at least not in this body. Everything returns to self. Self is the foundation. Self is the original, the primordial I am, the beginning of everything and the end of everything. But on sleep I will speak more later on. For now I would like to say that the original me represents the kind of a consciousness that can enter sleep. It is a consciousness of sleep. None other centers of consciousness or of the soul can remain conscious in sleep, because all our relative faculties are being deactivated. You cannot experience your body anymore. You lose consciousness of body. You cannot even experience your heart. You lose consciousness of your heart. You cannot experience the absolute in your body, because absolute is still there, but it is part of the original me. But before we go to the original me, as in connection to this discovery, we have also came to know the waking me, and getting to understand that waking me is the main center of consciousness. It is the center, it is the awareness center of consciousness. Not everything is awareness. Waking me is awareness, and I refer to it as well, which is also an important discovery, as primary attention. Because that which makes you conscious of anything is attention. Without attention, there's no recognition. Attention normally is unconscious, meaning lost in appearances, has no subjectivity, but when it is awakened, it becomes an equivalent to self. Attention is self. You have known of, there are actually two types of awakened attention. The first one you have already known for a long time. It is pure attention. Pure attention which illuminates all the centers of me, all the centers of the soul, including the consciousness of your body, including recognition of the absolute, is all being done by pure attention. But what pure attention is manifestation of? It is a manifestation of the main attention, master attention, which is exactly the meaning of the primary attention. Primary attention is something that everyone has. Pure attention has to be awakened spiritually, but primary attention, even without being awakened, is still present in everyone, because it is the empirical attention, it is the empirical awareness which allows us to recognize the world, which is obviously crucial for our existence and survival. And where is this attention is quite surprising, because we would assume it is in the mind, as we spoke in the past, about that attention becoming the person, for instance, the center of the thinker. But actually the person and the thinker and the attention in the mind, they are not primary attention. When attention in the mind is awakened, it is also pure attention, which is also surprising. Because to realize that the thinker and the thinking attention, the attention behind your thoughts, when it is conscious, I mean, conscious of itself, is pure attention, is surprising, because we are used to experiencing pure attention in a more subtle way, like in pure me of consciousness or in the heart, but still that mental attention, when awakened, is also pure attention. So primary attention is in the eyes. The center of the self is in the eyes. We usually like to think that looking through the eyes, we can see the soul of a person. It's somewhere deep inside that headspace, but it's not through the eyes that you can see the self. It is in the eyes that you see the self, and it is the self that is looking at the world from the eyes. Before primary attention can be awakened, the ground has to be prepared, because if you wish to start with awakening of primary attention in your eyes, it's simply impossible, because that experience cannot be contained and is too intense. Simply cannot be awakened without first going through other stages of awakening, such as pure consciousness. Space has to be open first. Even the attention in the person has to be awakened as well. That's why, as we are now contemplating it, I would like you to be anchored in your pure consciousness, in your innate me, I'm recently referring to pure consciousness in a new way as representing the same as emanation consciousness, like you are not going behind your head, and the center of pure consciousness is the innate me in your amygdala. So be there, be anchored there, and then feel your eyes. For now, with eyes open, we will close eyes soon, and behold that presence in your eyes become one with that presence in your eyes. Isn't it obvious that it is the strongest center in your consciousness? Pure consciousness is more etheric. Even if you go to your mind, your mental attention is like can be strong, but it is much weaker than the presence in your eyes. We have also concluded that awakening of the waking me, the primary attention, is replacing the person. You do not need two centers of permanent identity in the essential channel, with the exception of the fundamental me, which I will speak of soon. You cannot have person and primary attention simultaneously. It will be a conflict in identity, and it will be unnatural. So for those who are used to having the center of the person, you need to learn how to live without the person. And that will be quite simple if you embody primary attention. There's no need for the person, because there's no need for the thinker, because there's only one true thinker, which is primary attention. Only it is thinking not directly. There's no thinking in your eyes. It is thinking through mental attention in the mind, if thinking is needed. But when it's not needed, it is not thinking, and the whole prefrontal cortex, or the frontal lobe, becomes naturally emptied. Again, it's not for beginners, because I speak to those who are more accomplished on the path. The reason it is not for beginners is because regular people live so much in the mind. They are the mind. So of course they cannot experience that emptying of the prefrontal lobe. They did not go through the proper process of awakening. With primary attention, the beauty of its awakening is that it's quite effortless. There's no cultivation there. It's not like you need to stabilize that awareness or that primary attention by self-remembering, but you do need to awaken to it. So on the level of recognition, you do need to become one with it, but it's not really a practice. That center is so readily available. In fact, you're not supposed to really practice. Well, you're meant to remember it, but not practice, because due to the intensity of primary attention, any kind of practice would make it even more intense. And then one of the side effects of awakening of primary attention is that you get to become conscious of certain discomfort in your eyes coming from that intensity. You don't really know how to be there, what to do, because it is intense. So perhaps the initial instinct is to get away from it, to, for instance, pure consciousness, and to forget it. But you need to go through it, give it a chance. It is intense because it is not yet properly awakened, not yet properly met. One of the expressions of the awakening of primary attention is its internalization, which in itself is a quite interesting phenomenon, because it requires certain self-absorption in primary attention, and that absorption is connected to what I have been recently referring to as closing of the inner eyelids. So if your eyes are open and you put yourself in a state of vision, so to speak, where you are not trying to look, you are not trying to see, in fact you are trying not to see, you might be able to get in touch with that closing of the inner eyelids. Inner eyelids, or the second eyelids, are real. We cannot physically close it because we don't have the nictitating membrane anymore, but we still have a remnant of it, and there's a feeling, an actual feeling of closing the inner eyelids, that internalization of primary attention. Yeah, I am aware that for some of you it might be challenging to identify what that closing of the inner eyelids is, and do not worry, it will happen anyway, because when you are going towards the original me, that eyelids will close. But it's still something for you to contemplate. The concept of the inner eyelids actually is present in one of the animation movie and book called Japanese, called The Light of the Eyelids. Very nice title, where a girl who was sensitive to light, oversensitive to light, learned how to close her inner eyelids, and she was able to see within her inner eyelids, second eyelids, the river of light. It's all written in the new book. You can read it. Now, the awakening of the primary attention has to happen on par with awakening of the fundamental me. We have neglected the fundamental me the last years because I did not want to speak about the essential channel, trying to make the teaching simpler, but eventually I realize it cannot be avoided. Simpler does not mean better. Sometimes it's worse. Without going through the essential channel, you will remain greatly incomplete in your consciousness. So fundamental me. Now you can close your eyes. It might be easier. Fundamental me is felt at below your eyes, in your upper cheekbones. Also very interesting location. It's actually our entry to the absolute, in the essential channel. Fundamental me is actually the emanation of primary attention, and fundamental me is made of pure attention. So one way to get there is relax your eyes and fall into that space and become one with it. Fundamental me is also easily available. Now we are speaking about very advanced awakenings, but the beauty of it is that they are actually very simple, easily accessible, much easier than going to pure consciousness, for instance, because they are so close to you, in a way so obvious. Fundamental me is not so obvious, but it becomes obvious almost immediately, as long as you are guided to it, because you need to be guided to it, otherwise you would not know it. No way that you could know it. The chance for knowing it would be astronomically small, but now you know it, and this is what matters. So you need to go into the fundamental me, which provides you with that great feeling of rest. It's very pleasant center, very soothing, and very relaxing. And why awakening of fundamental me is so important here is to balance the intensity of primary attention in your eyes. You must have fundamental me in order to transform your primary attention, to fully awaken it. So we have here two centers. So there are only two centers in the essential channel, because the conscious mental attention is not a center. It just arises occasionally and as a response to thinking, and then disappears. So there are only two centers: fundamental me and primary attention, or the waking me, if you wish, in your eyes. I call it waking me because it is responsible for our actual experience of the waking reality. This is what makes you awake. Without this, all the other centers will be asleep. And now we are moving to that perhaps not final, but relatively final step, which is unification of primary attention with the fundamental me. Or should I say merging, not unification, that they become one space, but merging. Primary attention has to enter fundamental me. In fact, primary attention has to replace the fundamental me. So then at the end you will have only one center, you see. And that center is called the original me. So now with eyes closed, you have primary attention in your eyes and you have fundamental me. And the first step is to emphasize more the fundamental me. And what it means is that you have to become fully one with the fundamental me, one. But second is that you need to be in that absolute let go from the fundamental me. Fundamental me is sort of naturally in the absolute, but only if it is willing to let go into the absolute. Because if it's not willing to go into the absolute, perhaps it's just not fundamental me. It's something in between. Fundamental me requires absolute let go. But again, it's not like a practice, because the absolute is here so readily available in that fundamental me. But you can of course experience some resistance to fully let go. But that is not because reaching the absolute from the fundamental me is so challenging, but because you just resist for some reasons. Maybe even psychologically. But energetically, you can resist psychologically, but energetically, that center or that absolute is immediately available if you are willing to fully let go. So embodying fundamental me and letting go fully into the absolute. Even though you don't go anywhere. Those who realize, practice with the fundamental me, sometimes did it incorrectly, and by letting go they're like moving down through the whole face and so forth. That is because energy is falling down naturally, but fundamental me is not going anywhere. It's staying in the same location. This upper cheekbones, just be below your eyes, very close. Now, It's possible that you let go fully from the fundamental me, but then you lose connection to primary attention in your eyes. And then you might have an illusion that, my primary attention has merged with the fundamental me. It has not merged with the fundamental me. It just got forgotten. So while you are fully in the fundamental me, you need to stay conscious in your eyes. Feel the primary attention. And then, what we are doing, because the primary attention does not have vertical dimension in itself, which means it cannot go to the fundamental me by letting go. You can let go as much as you want, it will just not happen. So how to get there? So here we are introducing the element of sleep. You need to activate the sleep mode as falling asleep. There will be much more about sleep in the teaching soon, and in the retreat in Greece we'll practice with sleep a lot. But it's something that you should be doing already. Falling asleep. And what is falling asleep? Primary attention is falling asleep. Because only the one which is awake can fall asleep. All the other centers are not awake. They are experiencing the waking state as the extension of the primary attention, but they are not awake in themselves. So they are not going to sleep. They may be forgotten, but they don't go to sleep. And the primary attention goes to sleep. In that practice of falling asleep, you are also learning how to fall asleep, what it actually means. Not just turning off the light and everything becomes black, dark. It's entering sleep with light. Of primary attention. Because primary attention is the only one that can illuminate the sleep. If this becomes unconscious, sleep becomes just a death of consciousness. So falling asleep. As you are falling asleep, part of it is that closing of the inner eyelids, and then primary attention slides into the fundamental me. It becomes relocated. Well, at the last 3 days retreat we have only about this, so you should already know, but teaching is you have to go through different things over and over again, so you master them. And primary attention enters fundamental me. Primary attention enters the Absolute. the first surrender into the original me. The second surrender is pure primary attention, letting go of itself, letting go of any control, letting go of any holding, letting go of self-awareness. Because primary attention is also responsible for self-awareness, the main center of self-awareness. So it's letting go deeper. And as it is letting go of itself, it enters God, the source, primordial I am. That is the king samadhi, samadhi that crowns our existence. The final return to our original state. And the final piece, because as I have explained, the source of our suffering, which is separation, is actually primary attention. Primary attention is that self-manifested as me, as ego, as an individual. We can experience our individuality on many levels, but that is the essence of it, primary attention. But primary attention is also the self, is also that original light of God that has become an individual, and now in that process of getting absorbed in I am, it just remembers itself as God. Without that absorption, primary attention remains separate, and we simply cannot stop suffering. And I'm not speaking about the human suffering, I speak about the spiritual suffering. As long as you exist as human, there will be always some element of discomfort, but what we are trying to tackle here and solve is the spiritual suffering, which is the core suffering of the soul. It's actually the suffering of the soul, not suffering of the human. And here it ends. In that deepest merge between me and God, which is also deepest bliss and deepest love. The love of self to itself. Coming to this place is the deepest reason why you exist. What else is there except illusions and dreams? And it is so close. Here, you no longer abide on the vision of evolution as something never ending, reaching all those difficult states. It's here and now, it's immediate, so to speak. It's very close, very, very close to you. It's close to you. It is the closest. You just need to take a small step. That step you do need to take. To take the step home, to your home. If you have any desire left to be truly free, if you have any true love for your soul, go at peace. Requires taking just one step, but that step is monumental, representing your deepest surrender and your deepest devotion to the God within you.